State Hospital.
The debts run up by the now famous Woodstock Rock Festival reportedly were paid today. The wealthy family of 24-year-old John Roberts, one of the partners in the venture, was said to have deposited about $1 million in a bank to cover the debts, most of which were incurred ironically because the festival proved so popular. When as many as 500,000 young people showed up, the sponsors gave up trying to collect admission. The Roberts family fortune comes from pharmaceuticals. The uncivilized white man is ruining the neighborhood. So the Indians today barred him from 25 miles of a popular Pacific Coast beach in northwestern Washington. The Quinault Indians said that the white visitors are littering and painting graffiti on cliffsides and legendary rocks in the area, which forms the western boundary of their Olympia Peninsula Reservation. State officials doubt they can do much about the Indians' tribal decision.
Yourself for a little shock and some good news if you ever suffer from acid indigestion. This little tablet soothes and cools acid indigestion so effectively. It's hard to believe. It contains one of the most effective medicines ever discovered for acid indigestion. In tests at a famous college, it proved to neutralize excess acid in a matter of seconds. It worked so well, it's hard to believe. Prepared for a little shock. It's Tums, the medicine that's hard to believe till you take it. Tums, it'll make your stomach feel better now. Available in peppermint and 4 more flavors.
Communist leaders in Czechoslovakia claimed today that casualties among their troops and police far exceeded the civilian toll in last week's anti-Soviet rioting. And they said this alone disproves charges that police brutality was used in putting down the protests against the Russian occupation. However, Bill McLaughlin observed those riots, and he obtained information to the contrary. And now, safely out of Czechoslovakia, he gives us from Paris this background report on the violence.
The Czech communist leaders said that the violence was the work of provocateurs. No argument. They're absolutely right. But the provocateurs were not the young, the middle-aged, and the old running for their lives in the streets of Prague and Brno, or the tough, determined factory workers fighting tanks with sticks and stones. The provocateurs were those gray men in cheap black suits in the massive and ugly Communist Party headquarters on the banks of the Moldau River in Prague. They had made their plans for the anniversary week well ahead of time, and the plans worked according to schedule. The Czech leaders had been ordered by Moscow to crack down and get control of the situation. They knew that the underground resistance had asked the Czech people to make August 21st a day of dignified national mourning with a completely passive protest. But Communist Party Secretary Gustav Husak and his allies needed more than that. They needed violence. They needed an excuse to take away the few bits of democracy left to the Czechs and consolidate their own hold on power. And so the word was passed from Communist Party headquarters to the secret police. Start getting tough. Be brutal. Get the people worked up to the point where they will fight back. It happened. The people fought back, and now the communists have produced a set of emergency laws to control the violence they created. The laws give the government unlimited power, and there are no limits on its appetite to use power. Bill McLaughlin, CBS News, Paris.
And that's the way it is. Monday, August 25th, 1969. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night. The scene of another meeting of young people was revisited today by a CBS News correspondent. John Lawrence has a report on what he found.
2 weeks ago, the Woodstock Music and Arts Festival attracted 300,000 young people to the tiny Catskill Mountain resort town of Bethel, New York. Today, 7 were still here. The students and hippies were packing up for the trip home to Buffalo, taking along memories of an extraordinary event. They liked it so much, it was difficult to leave.
How have you
all been getting along with the townspeople last couple of weeks?
Really dynamite. Fantastic. Tell me. Well, like we got here, I've been here for about, I don't know, 3 weeks, close to a month now. And the first night we got here, we didn't have much money. And the policeman named Artie took me and the people that were in my car out to dinner and offered us to let us stay in his house. And it was, I mean, they're just out of sight. You know, everybody on the way in, the people that were coming in, on the last, you know, just before this festival started, there were people out in the road, you know, giving away free food, you know, townspeople and water.
Some other young people today were picking up the tons of debris left behind by the crowd. Everything from worn-out boots and sandals to toothbrushes. There is much more work to do. The kids have also left behind a controversy. Many of the people who live here are asking why such a spectacle was allowed to happen.
I think it has created a deep split in the townspeople. People who were friends and neighbors before are so hepped up about this that those who were friends before aren't friends any longer. And I think this is a sad situation.
What's the biggest issue?
Well, possibly the fact that it might come back again.
The moral aspect.
And also the moral aspect. You know, there were a lot of good children who came to this, and a lot of them who never smoked pot before, you know, did it that weekend, and a lot of them who never experienced sex before did. And, I mean, they were just exposed. These things you can say they were exposed, they would be exposed to anyway, but this was so highly promoted. It was right out in the open. The state police couldn't do anything about it. It was just too big.
Some residents are threatening to sue for damages. Promoters of the festival promised to pay all additional costs. They say they are now $1 million in debt. The man who rented his property for the festival, dairy farmer Max Yasgur, disagrees with his angry neighbors.
You've got to understand that this festival was contracted for no more than 45,000 people. We felt that we had proper facilities for 45,000 people. When I realized Friday night and Saturday morning that we were getting up close to the 500,000 mark, and there was a sea of people here, I became quite apprehensive. Thoughts flashed through my minds of some other problems that they've had throughout the country. And these kids, these young people made me feel guilty today because there were no problems. They proved to me and they proved to the whole world that they didn't come up for any problems. They came up for exactly what they said they were coming up for 3 days of music and peace.
So that 2 weeks later, all of the festival that lives now are the memories of the music and the kids, the protests of the townspeople, and a friendly black dog from New York City, lost and left behind in the confusion of it all. John Lawrence, CBS News, Bethel, New York.
In Richmond, the U.S. Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals has agreed to hear a South Carolina convict suit charging the state penitentiary canteen with price fixing. The prisoner claims the canteen has a captive market and violates federal anti-monopoly laws. As a footnote to our report last night on women's softball, the new national fast pitch champions are the Orange, California Lionettes. They beat the Stratford, Connecticut Breakettes 4-1 before 6,100 fans in Tucson, Arizona last night, and now they're eligible for the World Championship in Japan next year. Fast pitch, curves, and all. And that's the way it is, Friday, August 29th, 1969. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.